Hi all, let's have a look at another amazing encounter between Stockfish, the version as of 27th of January 2019, against Leela ID 32742. This is in the ChessCon Bullet Brawl. This is a 1 minute each with a 2-second increment time control. The opening book, so Stockfish playing white, starts with this: knight f3 c5. We transpose into Sicilian defense, Najdorf variation. We have bishop e3, knight g4, this variation, the end of the book here, and now Stockfish chooses bishop d3. We have g6, and the reaction to this move is actually quite interesting from Stockfish. So we're outside of the book, and actually Stockfish had chosen itself bishop d3, and now kind of it looks as though it's changing its mind where the bishop wants to go, but perhaps there's some logic here based on a lot of calculation that this diagonal might not be that effectual now that g6 has been played. Perhaps the bishop would have been left there if, say, e5 had been played after the knight moves back. But yeah, the bishop goes to e2, and this is not the most exciting, exotic bishop move you'll see in this game, actually. So bear with it. Bear with the excitement so far. On g6 here, in a very high level over the board game, there is one between Nepomniachtchi against Giri in Leuven 2017, and that followed with white just castling king h1. And you know, from a human perspective, I think humans don't really like to, almost as if retracting the plans, retracting the ideas of moves, as if changing one's mind. Maybe it's like a sign of weakness, but the engines don't really care about that. So you know, it followed from here, and white actually won against the mighty Giri, who's one of the top grandmasters in the world. But anyway, so Stockfish doesn't care if it's playing the exact position, and it thinks this is now the best move to g6. So bishop g7, bishop e3. We have knight c6. Now both sides actually castle. Queen d2, bishop d7, a4, as if white's following a positional plan here, trying to clamp down against b5, rook c8. And now interestingly, knight takes c6 is played, bishop takes c6, f3. So there is a bit of a positional bind against the d5 and the b5 squares here. Can black actually liberate the position in any way? In fact, Leela is keen to play for d5 here with e6. It does seem quite well supported in this position because white's given that bishop to be on c6, so it does support d5. We have rook 81, d5, and now Stockfish closes the center with e5. E takes d5 here doesn't seem to do that much. Bishop takes d5 is fine, it seems, to give up the light square bishop. For example, knight takes, bishop f2, queen c7. And black does seem to have significant pressure on the c file, and it should be even, this position. It's fine, even though white has the bishop pair. So we have actually this e5, knight d7, f4, and now the immediate undermining move f6. That's taken, queen takes f6. Bishop g4, trying to target the e6 pawn. And actually that's kicked, not worrying about the g5 weakness. It's all swings and roundabouts, but the pros outweighed the cons, basically, of playing h5, it seems, from a Leela perspective. Rook c e8. And now this is an exotic move. I wonder if you can guess what white plays here. It takes me back in time, actually. I'll tell you in a moment. But if you can guess it, 50 points to you. White to play. So Stockfish playing white plays what here? Okay, bishop a7. It takes me back in time to a TV televised game between Nigel Short and Garry Kasparov, and Nigel played this move like bishop a7, lost the piece but got a winning attack later. It was quite a fabulous game to watch on TV. It's like yeah, it seems like, you know, this is it a ridiculous square? Well, the thing is, sometimes the needs of the position dictate sometimes seemingly ridiculous moves. If the bishop drops back to f2, it does create a weakness to the last move. It's neglecting f4. Black can just snap up f4. The bishop wants to remain on this diagonal and not encourage simplification just yet, but have the option of bishop d4, especially when the queen moves. Then bishop d4 is supported by the rook, which might exchange off this, which might create weaknesses around black's king. So it's a kind of interesting move, actually. Not as absurd as you would think. But Leela kind of mocks it in a super dynamic way. Because, okay, we can say as humans it's slightly, in Siberia. Leela closes the doors on it with b6. But this is actually not as simple to play as you might think, just closing the doors here. If an alternative, rook a8, queen e3, for example, and now there's the option of bishop d4. So not just protecting the bishop, but the bishop's going to come back with a vengeance. Also, e3 looks at e6 as well. So, for example, this position is actually quite pleasant for white, indeed, big advantage. So, rook a8 is doing nothing, basically, but b6 seems to close the door on the bishop and now threaten to trap it. So we have a5. So that's another point here that if b5, then fine, the bishop's got the free reign of the diagonal again. But Leela actually encourages the bishop after rook f7 to be self-imprisoned. A takes b6, prison in Siberia. Now, you might think, well, this is really negative. Visually, it might be negative, but can you imagine if a knight comes to c5 later when black tries to keep the blockade now, to keep the lock and key on the bishop with bishop b7 as a prisoner? Just rule out bishop takes b6, by the way. This doesn't do much. Black gets that important dark square bishop and actually can hit the pawn immediately and get a nice position, small edge. So this would be, without a counterpart, it's a beautiful position for black. So the idea, Stockfish idea, this is good position, even though it looks as though the bishop is limited at the moment in squares. We have bishop b7. Okay, so what is actually going on here? We have knight a4. So any time that white can arrange a knight c5 effectively, the kind of blockade will be lifted. It's a desire to lift blockades. We have queen e7 now being played. And now b4 supporting the idea of knight c5, potentially. Queen d6. And now we have c4. d4. And here it gets quite interesting. You might think, isn't c5 worth considering? In fact, Stockfish played g3. On c5, it turns out here, queen d5 is an important move to control the c4 square and look at g2. Now, for example, knight b2, it seems actually that, okay, although the bishops and the queen's protecting g2, there's no problem in this diagonal, but black has got central pawn mobility. You could say rather perversely, because there's like a double blockade. Although there's a 3-to-1 pawn majority here, because they're blockaded, it seems in a way black has got the extra pawn now in the center after e5. If you look at this position with black potentially playing e4, it starts to look visually crushing in the center. Black does have a big advantage technically here. Yeah, it seems these pawns are just blockaded here in this variation. So this is actually quite dangerous if white plays c5. The pawns just end up being bad. If black plays queen c6 though, then the knight which is hit goes to b2, and it's white that's in the big driving seat after knight c4, ready to unblockade things with, for example, knight a5. So like this, taking out b7 and then taking out e6 is clearly crushing. White's going to get a big advantage. So black has to play very carefully around this prison, not to give mobility to these pawns. And the way to do that, f c5, queen d5, not queen c6. It's subtle stuff because the knight reroutes potentially. So we have g3, which you might think, well, hang on, that weakens the diagonal. It's actually, and there's a loose piece on a4. What is Stockfish doing? And it's got a trap piece on a7. This is ordinarily, engines can play what they want because they're playing to the absolute details of the position. And as humans, we usually get mashed because it's all tactically justified. But Leela can sometimes react in super dynamic ways to really actually expose maybe some unexpected downsides of what looks visually awkward here. This looks visually awkward, but it is technically a pawn up for white, gripping that pawn with both pieces here. Okay, they're both on the side on the A file. It's an amusing position. If we have a look at... we had a look at C5. So, okay, so G3, we have now D3. So this sets a trap or two. The first immediate trap, by the way, check out the puzzle book for this game on chessworld.net. If you log in, improve menu, there's puzzle books underneath puzzles. So ton of puzzles on this game alone, by the way. So D3, first trap. Queen takes D3 wasn't played because Queen C6 is nasty. It hits the A4 knight and threatens things like Queen H1 check, which is pretty dangerous for Queen takes and maybe picking up the bishop. And if King F2, then just take the knight. Big advantage. Okay, so this pawn can't be taken, it seems. So bishop G2. And now we have bishop takes G2. Queen takes G2. If king takes G2, then Queen C6 check, and then pick up the knight. So Queen takes G2. We have this pawn being taken. Queen C6 though. Is this dangerous for black? Bishop D4 check. King G2. And now Rook EF8. Just neglecting, it seems, this pawn here. So what on earth is going on in this position? It's a really fascinating position. Now King H3 was played. If Queen takes E6, just as an example, then Knight F6 is strong, with ideas like Rook E8 is now supported for Rook E2, crashing down to that second rank. So say Queen C6, Rook E8. This position is really dangerous for white after Rook F2. Here, Rook takes F2, there's check, and then this is absolutely winning. This is just winning. Black's got a big advantage. Let's have a look at this line again. Some fascinating stuff here. So after Knight F6, Queen C6, let's just revisit this variation. Now here, if Rook FD1, then Rook E7, and with the big idea now of Rook E1 mating the white king. So, you know, this extra material, yeah, white's king has been neglected on the ranks, it seems here, where white's king gets mated. Here in this line, if B7, then, you know, again, just get mated. And if Rook F3, let's change the tune here, Rook F3, then takes Queen B1 check, check, Knight G4 threatens Queen takes H2, mating. It doesn't matter about this, that's just protected by the Queen. So white's just busted here. If check, and then yeah, white's just getting checkmated. So it's actually, it turns out it's far too dangerous to take this pawn on E6 here. Fascinating. Because of this powerful swinging move, Knight F6, which shields G6 and supports Rook E8. And it doesn't matter about the D3, because the key thing with the bishop on D4 is to get that 7th rank check-in. And then trouble really starts brewing for the white king. So we have King H3, the king makes a run for it in a sort of shelter position. We have now G5 though, fascinating position. F takes G5 is played. Here, if Queen takes E6 check, sorry, it's not check, that's very important. G4 check, King H4, we have Queen takes A4 here, and black is in no problem here because the knight holds the rook, the checks run out. And also, let's check this again with King G2, just take here, again, the checks just run out. Black's getting a big advantage. So we have F takes G, which appears to leave the rook hanging. Now, Leela actually bypassed that opportunity given by Stockfish, being materialistic, with Queen E7, in fact. On Rook takes F1, Queen takes E6 check, and this position there's actually G6. So this ends up being equal. Yeah. So this is a problem. If white had sorry, if after rook takes f1, let's look at rook takes f1 again. If rook takes f1 instead, rook takes, queen takes d7, d2, it turns out this pawn's actually dangerous in this line. So for example, check, the checks actually run out eventually, and you know the pawn's really dangerous. Black's getting a big advantage. Okay, the queen can go back, but Black's really in a driving seat there with that pawn there on d2. So yeah, queen e7 bypasses the temptation to take that rook, holds e6. We have now rook takes f7, queen takes f7, which introduces things like queen f5 check, which look very dangerous indeed. We have queen e4, at least holding that f5 square, among other things. Here, if b7, just to show like check, and now if king h4, queen g4 mate, if king g2, knight e5 is strong, hitting the queen. For example, here check, check, rook f2, and this is just mating. So important to cover f5 in some respects. So knight e5 was played here, just just allowing the bishop to be taken. Very interesting move, knight e5. So what on earth is going on? It does technically protect the pawn on d3. We have knight c5 now being played. Finally, the knight moves away from the edge of the board. If queen takes d4, let's see the fireworks display. Queen f5 check. This wasn't played. So if king here, then knight f3, forking king and queen. But better than taking the queen is the checkmate. So we have this check here. If king g2, queen f3, and here queen takes d1, and if queen takes queen g4 check, and here h4 is actually really strong for black, believe it or not, in this position. Yes, this imminent form pawn saves the day. For example, h3, check, 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 and mate. So let's have a look at this position again, just for the record, after h3. After h4, yeah, if instead of knight c3, instead of h3, let's have a look at knight c3, allowing the form pawn, the dreaded form pawn. King g1, d2 is strong, so there's an idea of d1 queening. Black's got a big advantage there as well. So let's look at this line again. After queen f5 check, just to rule out g4, there's check and knight g6, and there's a pretty checkmate sequence like this. That's checkmate. So knight c5 was played, so not taking the bishop. So both sides are rejecting, funny enough, the offer of material on these amazing materialistic opportunities are being rejected by both. So knight f3 is played here. Threatening knight takes g5 check. Now we have knight takes e6, which holds g5, among other things. Walks into a self-pin, though. Rook e8 is played. Rook takes d3, but now knight takes g5 check. Very carefully calculated by Leela. After knight takes g5, yeah, not... well, the queen's attacked, so it's not good enough to take on e4. We have queen f1 check, that's the idea. Queen g2, because otherwise the queen's like hanging if king now just take the queen. We have now check here, picking up the rook with check. And okay, so this is very interesting now. So Leela is the exchange up. King g7, queen f3 is played. That's taken. Knight takes. Bishop e3, and this bishop has remained a prisoner throughout all of this. It's the main actors in this game have taken the big screen, and this is a side actor role. This bishop on a7 hasn't done much at all during this game. G takes h5 was played. If g5, there's a very comfortable blockading move, king g6, and now the pawn can start running. That's beautiful position. So yeah, black's going to have a big advantage there. So we have g takes h5, a5, the pawn starts running here, c5, that's starting to look desperate. Now, okay, white has got 3 extra pawns for the exchange right now, but the trend, which is very important to assess in one's games, is pretty downward slope for white here. That's taken, and now this passed pawn has great potential, tying pieces down, and now another pawn's about to drop off here. That pawn's taken, so black remains with this dangerous passed a pawn. And next on this downward slope trend, these pawns over here are about to be gobbled, especially with h4, making it easy to victimize both of them. One by one they drop off, and so we get a lonelier scene like a spaghetti western movie emerging. So here now Leela is making good progress here by getting the king first over there. We see amazing endgame technique. Leela's working on a second edition of Dvoretsky's Endgames, Leela style, trolling, how to troll the endgame. Okay, so here, yeah, whilst white holds the lock and key to a1 here, holding up a1 for a moment, Leela has been making some micro progress with the position. We're about to witness rook b7, for example, introduces ideas of bishop g7 to try and evict, swap off the blockader. In fact, it does seem around here that it seems plausible that black can play bishop g7 and just queen the pawn, but that's not Leela's style. We have, there seems to be some obvious moves which are not played. We have this very strange, apparently very, very strange thing happening here with bishop g7 possible after king e4, with the king going away from the pawn. Bishop g7 seems possible. You might think, did the king have to go there? Well, king c4, in fact, for example, bishop g7, knight d4, there's rook f4, and black's going to just snap off and queen there, winning. So king e4 here, bishop g7 does seem possible, but Leela's style, rook h7, and we have this. It's made to look kind of embarrassing that Stockfish moved the king away from the pawn and is now obviously losing to that queening pawn. And Leela doesn't play a1, but instead, well, not with queening, has to underpromote a knight. And that's not even taken. So we have a technical exercise here, a rook up instead. Well, it's still absolutely winning for black. Okay, so let's see the amazing technique here. Yes, it goes on for a bit, doesn't it? Finally, this bishop, which earlier was trapped in the prison, is trapped in another prison now, and is about to be swallowed up, like a James Bond film. When the villains swallow up the things in outer space. This bishop is about to be swallowed up. Yes, it's disappeared. An investigation needs to happen. What happened to this? Okay, it finally was trapped and punished for its earlier impudence. Okay. And yes, now Leela decides to prove to the world that she can actually mate with knight and bishop, because people were wondering, can Leela do that? Well, with the table-based integration, it seems Leela has got some sort of plan of mating with the knight and bishop, which I'm not sure might not be the most optimal route, but it does seem to be quite cohesive around here, as if the black king is being driven down to a dark square corner. You need to checkmate the king on a dark square corner for the bishop to deliver a checkmate. So the king needs to be kicked away from this corner into this corner. Can Leela actually demonstrate that? Check. Bishop b6. And here the dance begins. Yes, the bishop is stopping the king, and the knight is stopping the king from getting to this corner. Leela wants the king on a dark square corner. And now the king is being sucked into h8 here. Very high precision stuff. The king cannot go this way now. It's been sucked into that h8 square mercilessly. Leela's not messing around now, is she? With this ending. Yep, the king cannot go this way. It's being pushed into that corner. Yes. Waiting move, crushing waiting move. Check, pushing the king onto h8 for termination. You have been terminated, Stockfish, on h8, knight and bishop. See, I can play knight and bishop endings. Okay, if you enjoyed this game video and all the amazing variations I've prepared for this game video, check out the improved menu at Chessbowl, the puzzle book for this. There's going to be a lot of them to check and remember the amazing variations of this game as puzzles. That's the one thing. You can also play other YouTubers at chessbowl.net. So, and also you can check out the annotated game on the improved menu, Learn from the Masters. But yeah, the key one is the improved menu puzzle books page. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Comments, questions, donations, see the description. Like, share, subscribe with the notification bell. Really appreciated. Thanks very much.